Hi everyone and welcome to today's Crowdfund Sport Live and Learn webinar. Today we will be telling you all about Sport England's Return to Play Active Together Fund, as well as teaching you how to crowdfund for your sport organisation. So just before we kick off, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping points. So we've allowed 30 minutes for today's session, but it might take a little bit more depending on how many questions we get. If you do want to ask a question, there's a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, so just pop them in there and we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. We're working from home at the moment, so our internet might cut out or the post might arrive, so please just bear with us. And then finally, if you are wondering if we can see you, we can't. You can see us, but we can't see you. At the end of today's session, we will share a link to our Crowdfund Learn platform, which has got all of the tools that you need to plan and run a successful crowdfunder campaign. So please do have a look at that. And then finally today, we are going to be hearing from Chloe, our sport coach, as well as someone who has already crowdfunded successfully. So let me introduce Chloe.
Hi Grace, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you doing?
Thank you.
Okay, amazing. So I'm going to hand over to Chloe to talk you through how to crowdfund.
Fab. So crowdfunding is a great way to raise both money and awareness for your organisation through engaging with the community. You'll set up a page on our online platform that will look a little bit like this one here. You'll then promote that to your crowd and community, and those that want to support you or perhaps fancy one of your rewards will make a pledge to help you reach your goal. When setting up your page, firstly, don't worry if you're not too tech savvy. The platform is really, really easy to use. It's important to think about the whole community when you're creating your page. Don't fall into the trap of making a page simply for your club members. They're already the most likely to support you. So the key to a really strong campaign is to make it enticing for someone outside of your immediate network. Think about Joe Blogs round the corner, has no interest in sport whatsoever. How can you get that person to pledge on your campaign? So I would start with the text. As you can see on this page here, you can add really nice big bold headings. So start with a little introduction about your club and the teams within your club, focus on inclusivity, and tell us why your club is important to the local community. Lots of clubs will host community events. Maybe other organisations use your facilities as well. All these things are a reason why more than just club members are going to pledge on your campaign. So it's really important to include those. The next section sounds a little bit obvious, but tell us why you're crowdfunding. What is the project that you're raising money for? For many of you here, I expect that will relate to the financial impact that COVID has had on your organisation. It's been a really expensive time for sports clubs. So tell your audience that, explain why it's been expensive and why you need to raise funds. And finally, tell us how you plan to spend the money. As a supporter, you're much more likely to pledge on a campaign if you can see the direct effect that your contribution is going to have. So, include information as to how much is going to go where, and just be really, really transparent with it. So now you've got all the information, you want to make your page nice and engaging. And the best way to do that is through images and videos. As you can see here, you can add images all throughout the campaign page, and I recommend having images to reflect each section, and include images of people, any of those community events, and make it really engaging. Lots of people means that it's going to be shared more as well. Your video should be a 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch of your campaign. Again, have someone speaking to the camera because it's far more relatable. and summarise, this is who we are, this is why we're crowdfunding, and this is how you can help. Next up, I want to talk about rewards. So I mentioned this earlier. Rewards are the best way to encourage more and higher pledges. The average donation on a campaign is £20, whereas the average pledge on a reward is £50. So really adding value to your campaign. So you can offer a real range of rewards, and the most effective campaigns will have a range of different rewards targeted at different audiences and at different price points too. So you could have rewards targeted at your membership base and those interested in your sport. So memberships and coaching sessions, maybe memorabilia or something like this. You could offer corporate focused rewards such as sponsorship deals. But the key to engaging those outside your immediate network is by offering some tempted rewards donated by the businesses in the local area. So let's take a fish and chips voucher, for example. You can get £20 worth of fish and chips if you pledge £17 on that reward that you can see there in the middle. So I don't need to be interested in sport to want to pledge on that campaign. If you're promoting that to those in your local area, they're going to be able to grab a bargain. So they don't even need to be interested in your campaign to help you reach your goal. This is just a selection of some of the rewards we've seen up there. There's been a whole range of really effective rewards, and I recommend taking a look through some other pages to get inspired by some of those. Another feature that we've got here at Crowdfunder is the multiplier function. So this allows people to fundraise on behalf of your project. This is a great example of a project that did just that. So Spencer Lacrosse Club had 44 fundraisers, meaning 44 individuals set up a mini campaign connected to that main one to help the club reach their goal. You'll set up the page in the same way, and you'll see a button that says enable the multiplier, and it's as simple as that. And then individuals can then create their multiplier project, and everything they raise will go towards yours. This is a great way of getting more people involved in your campaign, whether that's individuals that want to do something special like a sponsored run, or if perhaps your teams want to compete against each other to see who can raise the most. Not only are you encouraging more people to get involved, you're going to be encouraging them to promote it to their networks, but you also might be able to add a bit of a competitive element to your campaign too. So as I'm sure you're all aware, we have teamed up with Sports England on the Return to Play Active Together Fund. Just this month, they have released an additional £5 million into the funding pot, bringing the total up to £7.5 million to go to sports clubs to help the financial recovery after the pandemic. Each club can receive a maximum of £10,000 or a maximum of 50% of your project targets. This will vary depending on IMD decile. So if you're in a more affluent area, you may get around the 30 to 40%. And if you're in a more deprived area, that will be boosted up closer towards the 50% mark. So let me show you how that works. You will set up your page on Crowdfunder, and before I go any further, please note that Sports England will be reviewing your project page as well as your application form. So make sure that it's got lots of images, videos, and those really important rewards on there too. You can then apply for extra funding through your Crowdfunder dashboard, which will send your project off to Sport England, and they will let you know within a couple of days if they're happy to support you and with how much. At that point, you can start crowdfunding, and when you reach 25% of your project target and the required supporter numbers, which you can see in the table there, that's when the Sport England pledge will go onto your campaign and boost you closer to your target. You then need to make sure that you reach 100% of your target in order to secure the funding. So we're at 100%, everything's safe, and you can have a little celebration, but it's not over yet. If you've still got time left on your campaign, you can add a stretch target to avoid your campaign looking complete and encourage your crowd to continue supporting you. Now, you guys are all advantaged because sport crowdfunds really well. That makes sense to me. Crowdfunding is all about the community coming together and cheering for a common goal. And I think the same can be said about sports. I've just used this page to show you a selection of some of the brilliant projects we've seen over the past year. And there is a whole range of sports in there, from speed skating to scuba diving to rugby and cricket. It doesn't matter what sport you practice, sport crowdfunds really, really well. That's all from me for the time being. Grace, I'm going to hand back to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chloe. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be hearing from someone who has successfully crowdfunded before. So I'd like to introduce Sean from the Guiseley Cricket Club, who raised a very impressive £38,730 from 148 different supporters. So if you do have any questions for Sean or for Chloe, just put them in the chat box and we can go through them at the end. Sean, are you there?
I am. Do you want me to turn my video on as well?
Yes, please. That would be great. Hello.
Hi.
So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about your project?
Yep. So Guiseley Cricket Club's a relatively large cricket club. We've got about 200 members, about 100 playing members, including juniors, and we're just north of Leeds. Our training facilities have been in place for about 20 years, and they were falling apart literally at the seams, making it difficult for seniors and for older juniors to practice within those nets facilities. We needed to really revamp and upgrade our nets, and we needed to sort some drainage out around the nets area, and also at the bottom end of our cricket field, which is used by other community sports groups in the local area. So our project was to sort some of that drainage out and to also put in a brand new 3-lane nets facility on site that would support our junior and senior setup. As you mentioned, we raised just short of £39,000, and our target was £30,000.
Amazing. Really, really good. So you've touched on like why it was that you needed the money and what it was specifically that you were crowdfunding for, but why did you decide to crowdfund over, I don't know, any other ways of raising money?
Yep. We needed a short, sharp fundraising exercise. We weren't really prepared at the start of the season to do this, and it quickly became apparent. We had some vandalism on the nets facility that accelerated the need for us to fundraise very quickly. We reviewed options such as just giving, just running fundraising ourselves, but we needed a focal point to really kickstart the fundraising and in a short amount of time to support engaging suppliers quickly and to try and get those nets facilities built ready for next season. And Crowdfunder was ideal for that.
Amazing. And then what did you find? Was there anything that you kind of found particularly difficult about crowdfunding? Was there anything that you thought went really well?
Yeah, initially everything was difficult, and that was because we raced into the crowdfunder without really understanding what crowdfunder was. We were new to it. We had spotted the matching funding with Sports England. Didn't quite again understand the conditions that you've been through on this call. And yeah, we kind of made a series of mistakes by racing into this rather than taking a step back and preparing for crowdfunder. And it was a real big eye opener all the way through. Is being sort of very new to that process, you know, how and what is needed to run a successful campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the things that a lot of our projects who crowdfund with us struggle with. It's not always people don't always give themselves that planning time, which is really, really key. And also with the match funding, again, like you mentioned, it's just really important to make sure you're looking through the criteria and the terms and conditions. And then what was it that you enjoyed about the process?
I think there's a couple of things. So the first is the help and support that we did get. So both Sports England and also Crowdfunder have been really, really helpful all the way through the process. So whilst we raced in and we had all those difficulties, any questions we had, even hints, tips on how to improve our crowdfunding page, that was, you know, extremely helpful and supportive. You know, I sent a couple of thank you emails out after the project because they really helped us navigate through all of the things that we needed to do to run a successful campaign. The other thing that I would call out is, and again, something essential for running this type of activity is to have a really enthusiastic team behind you at the cricket club or at the sports club or at the community club that you're representing. You can't do it all by yourself. And one of the best things was bringing all of those things together that we needed to do and getting people on board with the same enthusiasm to kind of drive and make that campaign as successful as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another thing that a lot of people who try and crowdfund struggle with, is that they don't have a team of people around them, because there's obviously, as you know, a lot of actions that you need to delegate to other people. And part of making a successful crowdfunder is having that team. So really good advice. So as Chloe mentioned in her presentation, we really encourage our projects to include rewards on their crowdfunders, which obviously you did. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you source those rewards and any that were particularly effective?
Yep. So the rewards, again, we were a bit slow to put and publish rewards on our site, and it was picked up by Sports England, which was great. And the rewards really did help drive us towards the end target. The biggest reward that we offered really was sponsorship of signs around our ground, club sponsorship. That really brought in a lot of fundraising for us. And what you've got to do and get right is the pitch to the local businesses and local community. You know, they won't give you money for nothing. You have to tie in some kind of value for them, and also to build a partnership with them so that it becomes a two-way relationship. Almost thinking what's in it for them as much as what's in it for you. And that was I think probably raised at least 50% of our target, getting in some really big sponsorship from local businesses and being able to tie in those businesses with our activities and their activities to make it a two-way relationship and build those partnerships. Other good rewards, so we managed to get some signed shirts. Merchandise was a great one. So if you have a merchandiser, get your merchandise on the sites. That's a really good way of as I say, generating money, and anything unique. So anything that money can't buy is going to be a very good seller. So we had things from race meet tickets, so hospitality race meet tickets, through to tickets for events, cricket events. So anything you can get on that site for rewards, make sure you do. Even use it for tickets for fundraising events that you're running. Again, another way to boost those fundraising activities, like a curry night or a race night, or some kind of social event or set of events that you might be running. Even if they're after your fundraising target, you can get that money in earlier, and it can be part of your total. So be creative with it. It does work.
Absolutely, I love that advice. And then, so just before we bring Chloe back, can you tell us about the benefits to crowdfunding that are like outside of the financial benefit?
Yeah, I touched upon it with the rewards, which is we've now built really strong relationships with multiple local businesses and also community groups. And it's really, we're on a number of Facebook groups with local businesses and community groups. So there's a whole opening of new avenues for working with partners from a financial perspective, but also bringing some of the community in to use our facilities and leverage our facilities that we have. So one of the benefits is we were quite, I won't say insular in terms of, everything was within the sports club and we used our contacts within the sports club. And one of the benefits of the crowdfunder is it's really kind of put the club a little bit on the local map. And we've got people coming to talk to us now that kind of didn't know that we were, even though we've been there 100 years, didn't know that we were there, and and that we had facilities that they could use. So that's been a real massive benefit outside of crowdfunding. Is it's really got us sort of noticed, and it's started to build some sort of long-term partnerships financially, but also with the local community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the awareness that you get from crowdfunding is 100% one of the best things about it. So I am going to bring Chloe back on now so we can have some questions from the audience. Hello. So first of all, we've got a question from Abby saying, I developed a crowdfunder for our charity last year, but it didn't go ahead. We now have a new project and I would like to use the old crowdfunder as a template, i.e. adapt the old one rather than start from scratch. Is it okay to adapt an existing crowdfunding project? The original one didn't go live, and can I then ask Sport England to re-review it for match funding?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So use your logins and you'll be able to access that draft page. Actually, that's a nice little prompt for me. So you can stay in draft mode for as long as you want. So if you want to change and adapt a page before going live, you've got plenty of time to do that. And I recommend doing so because you'll familiarise yourself with the website. But yes, in short, you can absolutely adapt that, and you can apply for Sport England's extra funding through your dashboard, whether it's a new project or one that you set up a while ago that didn't go live.
Perfect, thank you. And then for Sean, would you do it again? And if so, what would you do differently?
Yes, so we would do it again, but we would plan and prepare in advance of running the crowdfunder. Once the crowdfunder starts, the time starts ticking. And as I mentioned previously, we just ran straight into it thinking it will just be a great focal point. We'll get all this money in, but without really preparing for the videos, the content, the rewards. And that took some time to sort of build up. So we maybe lost a week or two of kind of direct fundraising and access to different areas. So yeah, if we do it differently next time, I think we'd spend the time to just plan out that campaign and the rewards with a little bit more time than just racing straight into it.
that actually kind of leads on to the next question, which is from Nikki. So obviously earlier you were talking about what you found particularly difficult about crowdfunding, and you mentioned that you might have made a few mistakes. So she just wants to know if you could tell us a little bit more about the mistakes that you felt that you made in your crowdfunder.
Yeah, so I think that there's a few mistakes. So number one was the pitch. So we mentioned that we raced straight into it, and we just thought it was a fundraiser, and we just need to get it running and moving, and then we'd catch up with things. But it's a short, sharp fundraising activity, so you have to be prepared to start fundraising from day one with all of your material. The second is the kind of, I call it the pitch or the value. A lot of our local businesses asked us, well, what's in it for me? You know, what do I get from this? So you have to think about your partnerships that you want to build. So it might be a local estate agent that wants to put some money in, but you have to think about how, you know, you can build that relationship, you can build that value add for the, you know, for that activity, so that you will get the money and you will get a long-term you know, relationship with that company. So again, it's all about making sure that before you go into something, you kind of, you know, you know how you're going to run your campaign, and you know how to get your crowdfunder started, so that you are pushing crowdfunding or sponsorship from day one, rather than having to worry about videos and who you're going to contact, and, you know, how you're going to get this done, and what your team looks like. You know, so you've got to think about that before you start doing crowdfunding, because it is a short, sharp exercise.
Yeah, 100%. And we when we share the Learn platform later, we have a whole course on planning. So if anyone wants to check that out. And another question for you, Sean. So 39k is very impressive. Were you surprised by how successful the crowdfunder was?
Yes, because I have to admit, when we set the target, I don't think we put too much thought into how we were going to get to the target, as I mentioned. So as a fundraiser, I mean, I will admit I had less confidence we were going to get there overall, because you start off with a small number and it builds and builds over time. But the more we got our planning and the more we got our preparation right in terms of approaching local businesses, community groups who have given us money, you know, it becomes something that you then feel confident you're going to achieve. The other thing that you also need to bear in mind is that the Sports England donation, if you meet their criteria, counts towards your final target, which we hadn't realised during the campaign. So we thought we were going to be a bit short, but then we, you know, when we realised that was part of the figure, you know, that did make a big difference to achieving the figure. So again, as part of your preparation, think about how much you can achieve, and also look at, if you're going for matching funding, what the conditions are of the matching funding to then amend your target total.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question, Sean? When the Sport England Fund went onto your campaign page, did you see that motivate your crowd?
It actually had the opposite effect. So when the money went on and we hit the target, we achieved our £30,000, which was our original target set, and of course everybody relaxes, but the whole thing around that whole short, sharp exercise is to not relax until the time period expires. So, you know, you've got to keep pushing that funding or fundraising as much as you can do to get your stretch targets. And, you know, you almost have to be, I mentioned earlier, you have to be like the chief nagger, you know, with your fundraising campaign, which is, no, we haven't finished. We've got to hit the stretch target. And if you hit the stretch target, set a new stretch target, keep going, because the more money you can generate, obviously it gives you more flexibility with what you can do on your projects.
100%. So another question for you, Sean. When you are building relationships with the sponsorships that you mentioned, how would you recommend people reach out in the first instance if they don't already have a connection?
Yeah, good. That's a good question. It was one of the difficulties we had is it was during or just maybe exiting COVID and COVID lockdowns, and that makes it's difficult getting those face-to-face connections. So with the local businesses, now get round, go talk to them, get some collateral. So by collateral, I mean, get a letter written up, maybe get it signed by the chairman or the president of your club or association. Give them something that is something tangible they can read, they can look at. But go speak to them face to face. For others, send some cold calling emails, which we did a number of across a number of businesses. Even we cold called quite a lot with telephone calls and with emails, because you just don't know that somebody may want to sponsor or make a connection with the club. Facebook, social media, massively important. We made so many new connections through so many Facebook sites that we didn't even realize they kind of existed. There was one for local businesses and community groups within the town or in the village, and we didn't even realize that existed, and that's brought some really great connections back to the people that run our club, and they're in talks with various groups for the use of our facilities, which again helps the local community. So face to face is always great. Email, and social media are the main sort of tools. But if you are going to talk to local business and community groups, make sure you've got your pitch right. Make sure you've got what value that relationship can add, even if it's a basic sign going up around your ground or on a building, or sponsorship of your website. Make sure that you can sell that value to that person or to that company.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially what you said about social media. I think people forget that Facebook is such a good tool for these kinds of things.
Almost every area will have like a local community group on Facebook, and just by joining that and promoting some of those sort of external facing rewards, you're attracting people that are in the area that want to shop locally. They maybe know those businesses, they might know that fish and chip shop, and you're accessing people that maybe you don't know personally but are going to want to claim some of those rewards.
That's it. And one other thing is ask your members, or ask your the groups for help. Ask if anyone knows anyone who would like to make a contact for sponsorship or would like to put some money into the fundraiser. Don't be ashamed to ask for help from your members, or even from people, friends, work colleagues. Every contact, every supporter counts on the Crowdfunder site.
Definitely. So I've got a couple more questions for each of you just before we finish. Chloe, how long do you recommend people take to prep their campaign, and when will Sport England look at the application?
So Sport England will look at the application as soon as you send it in. So it's your job to go through your dashboard and apply, and you'll fill in a short application form. That'll be sent off to Sport England, who review projects within a couple of days. You'll hear back from them really quickly. I recommend spending 4 weeks planning a campaign, creating it, sourcing those rewards, get your team together, put a timeline together for what you're going to do. We always see a peak at the beginning and at the end of a campaign. So that middle section, you want to have lots of activity, release some new rewards, hold a fundraising event, have some social media posts ready to go. The more planned you are, it'll be much easier when you're running it. and you won't have that panic that Sean had, where it had to go back and revise the campaign, but actually you'll be prepared, you'll be ready, and it will be far less stressful.
Absolutely. And then one question for Sean, just quickly before we wrap up. What one piece of advice would you give to anyone who was about to crowdfund?
Do your reading. So read up on matching funding, the criteria for matching funding, and plan, as we've talked about, plan and prepare your campaign strategy and how you're going to achieve your fundraising before you start. Even getting videos organized, it takes time. You know, people within your club or organization are busy, so you have to factor all these things in, because once the crowdfunder starts, your time is ticking away. So you need to get all of that done, ready. So day one, your sole focus is on fundraising.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you both for answering all those questions. And thank you, Chloe, for going through your really informative presentation. So I think that's all we've got time for in terms of our questions today. So thanks again. And then I'm just going to hand over to Chloe to talk through the next steps.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone now feels a little bit more confident about how crowdfunding can help you. So as Sean says, time to do your research, do your reading, join our online learning platform. It will take you through the steps of planning, creating and running a successful campaign. And if you've got any questions throughout the process, please don't hesitate to contact me on chloe@crowdfunder.co.uk. That's all we've got time for today. So thank you once again for joining. Yeah, please do be in touch.